Well, good morning, History 2145. This week we're going to take a step in a slightly different direction and look at America through the lens of, the Vietnam War, Watergate, and just the general tumult that takes place in the United States in the late 1960s through the 1970s. So as we've kind of alluded to prior to this week, um, the Cold War is the dominant factor, kind of determining the nature of American politics, society, culture, diplomacy, etc. in the post World War II period. In our case here, right, with the outbreak of the war in Vietnam, actually beginning in the 1950s, following the Second World War, France's attempt to stabilize its once former colony of Indochina, and the United States really trying to avoid losing another China like happened during the Truman administration. From Eisenhower to Kennedy, we see increased investment in trying to protect South Vietnam from the communist North. And this proxy war, as it becomes known, because it is in essence a war against democracy, capitalism, and communism, is in fact, right, not a war between the US and the Soviet Union. It's a war over these ideas in South Vietnam, costing tens of thousands of civilian and military lives. And so this conflict, which as you'll read this week, the United States continually doubles down its investment in military personnel on a very regular basis with very little in return, is an indication that this Cold War period and these proxy wars are very different. They're not the traditional wars on the field of battle or in the streets like, say, we had in the Second World War. And as such, right, there's this disconnect between the White House, the Pentagon, and the troops on the ground. To make matters worse, this is also the truly first televised war, where the Pentagon made the decision to embed reporters with its military personnel in Vietnam, and they would report back every night the results of a military campaign. And as time went on, they were reporting casualties and deaths, ever increasing casualties and deaths. And so that begins to shift that public opinion behind a war in a far-flung land where American sons are losing their lives, overwhelmingly poor and colored sons losing their lives. And so that's where we get an element of that anti-war protest. To make matters worse, right, we have the series of unfortunate events that is the summer of 1968. We have the assassination of Dr. King. We have the brutal violence by the Chicago police at the Democratic convention. And then we have the assassination of Bobby Kennedy. And so as we slide into this decade that is the 1970s, America is really just been taking it from right and left and center and all over, from everywhere. And so they're very downtrodden. In comes the Nixon administration in 1968, his triumphant return from, losing the White House, or his bid for the White House in 1960 against Kennedy, coming in and really kind of taking the United States in a very conservative turn. Hard on crime, hard on drugs, hard on poverty, and really just kind of overturning all of that good work that the Johnson administration tried to do with the Great Society. And so we see the staunch shift. We see the doubling down of American military might in Vietnam. And we see his national security advisor, Henry Kissinger, trying to win the war by bringing powers together through a policy known as détente or cooling. And the economy slowly starting to struggle and come to a grinding halt by the middle of the decade. Which we will talk about in just a second. But then, obviously, the scandal that is Watergate and the challenges that brought to the Constitution and the office of the presidency. When Gerald Ford Nixon's vice president takes over and makes that fateful decision to give a pardon to Richard Nixon, basically pulled the rug out from Americans' kind of trust in the government. And so when this governor and peanut farmer from Georgia, Jimmy Carter, runs for office, he's truly that outsider, that unknown, that alternative to the Washington establishment. However, Carter, just due to his executive style, his approach to domestic and foreign, really kind of stumbled and causing some significant economic troubles for the United States with rising inflation, declining employment. This is where we come with that term stagnation, and then added to that a series of oil embargoes and other energy crises. The 1970s, which should have been another decade of growth, really became a decade of stagnation. It is known as the me decade, right? Nobody's doing anything for my community, my family, so I'm going to do everything for me. Okay. There's a lot of information. So this week, as you're going through the reading, please know it's a lot happening. If you have questions, please reach out to me. And as always, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.